to hold a high-level meeting to address the Essequibo controversy on Thursday, December 14th, with the purpose of preserving peace in Latin America and the Caribbean. In Palestine, the Israeli regime continues its attacks against civilians in Gaza, killing dozens and injuring many others. In Egypt, 4 candidates are competing in a presidential election overshadowed by the war in neighboring Gaza, with little doubt that incumbent Abdel Fattah al-Sisi will win a third term. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and the Cooperative Republic of Guyana will hold a high-level meeting with the purpose of preserving peace in Latin America and the Caribbean. The meeting will be held on Thursday, December 14th in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. President Nicolas Maduro received the proposal for dialogue from the head of state of Brazil, Luis Ignacio da Silva, and the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, during a telephone conversation. In both calls, President Maduro ratified the historical position of Venezuela's unquestionable sovereign rights over Guyana Essequibo, as well as the legitimate and peaceful nature of this territorial claim, which has been maintained in strict compliance with the provisions of the 1966 Geneva Agreement. Regarding the dialogue to be held between the two nations, the national government expressed its satisfaction and accepts this call with pleasure and commitment. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves announced a face-to-face meeting between Guyanese President Irfan Ali and Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro on December 14th in the Caribbean island.
Regarding an important initiative for face-to-face dialogue between the presidents of Guyana and Venezuela. That meeting, that dialogue, face-to-face, is scheduled to take place on Thursday, the 14th, here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. This discussion would relate to matters consequential upon the border controversy which exists between Guyana and Venezuela.
During the press briefing, Gonsalves read a letter addressed to both President Maduro and President Ali, highlighting the importance of this face-to-face meeting to preserve the region as a zone of peace.
Given the recent events and circumstances attendant upon the border controversy, the leaderships of CELAC and CARICOM have assessed in the interest of all concerned, including our Caribbean and Latin American civilizations, the urgent need to de-escalate the conflict and institute an appropriate dialogue face-to-face between the presidents of Guyana and Venezuela. Both of you have concurred with this assessment in the quest of peaceful coexistence, the application and respect for international law, and the avoidance of the use or threats of force.
The Prime Minister acknowledged the difficulty of the task ahead.
We are all aware that the government of Guyana is seeking the resolution of the border controversy through the processes of the International Court of Justice, which is currently seized of the matter. We are cognizant, too, that the government of Venezuela has rejected the path of the ICJ as the modality for resolution. The Parliament of Guyana has unanimously instructed the President of Guyana not to discuss the border controversy with the government of Venezuela. The people of Venezuela have advised overwhelmingly in a consultative referendum on December the 3rd, 2023, their government not to accept the jurisdiction of the ICJ in the matter of the border controversy. Clearly, each of you has to summon the proverbial wisdom of Solomon, the patience of Job, and the foresight of all the ancient prophets to engender good neighborliness in peace, justice, security, and prosperity for all concerned.
The Prime Minister called to continue preserving the region as a zone of peace and warned against the dire consequences of an open conflict.
The fact of the matter is this: our region has been and is a zone of peace, and we like to keep it like this. If open conflict, force emerge, the implications are horrendous to contemplate. It would affect negatively everyone in the most distant villages in our Caribbean and also in Latin America. I don't think I can put it any higher than that.
Javier Milei warned Argentinians that it will be necessary to make a tough fiscal adjustment that will imply sacrifices but will eventually bear fruit, as he assumed the presidency on Sunday. The president of Argentina addressed a message to his followers in which he made it clear that his plan of economic shock and tough fiscal adjustment is the bet for his first month in office. Milei launched a string of data on the country's fiscal deficit to justify the upcoming implementation of his plan of measures. He considered that the solution implies a fiscal adjustment in the national public sector of 5 points of GDP, which, as he promised, will fall almost entirely on the state and not on the private sector. The application of a program of forceful cuts will have a negative impact on salaries, poverty levels, and indigency. Among the guests invited to the ceremony were the King of Spain, the presidents of Armenia, Paraguay, Chile, Ukraine, the Israeli Foreign Minister, and the U.S. Secretary of Energy. In Cuba, an investigation carried out by the Ministry of the Interior has unveiled a U.S.-driven plan to generate violence and death on the island. The investigation detected an infiltration operation in the province of Matanzas in the west of the country. Using a jet ski, a Cuban president in the United States moved from the landing zone to Cienfuegos in the center-south of the island. Several of those involved in this action, which was assisted by terrorists living in the United States, are on the list of terrorists published by the Cuban government. Also involved are Manuel Milanes, Miguel Gomez, and Amihail Sanchez, among others who, as some witnesses say, offer money in exchange for the commission of crimes and violent acts. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. At least 4 civilians were killed and dozens were injured in the center of the city of Khan Yunis during Israeli airstrikes on Sunday night in the besieged southern Gaza Strip. Local sources said Israeli artillery fired several missiles targeting civilians' homes. Israeli artillery also shelled intensively the eastern neighborhoods of Gaza City as army troops continued their ground invasion. Moreover, Israel launched intensive air raids on the city of Rafah in the southern strip. According to Gaza's health ministry, so far at least 17,700 people in Gaza have been killed, mostly women and children. Continuing with the situation in central Gaza, Israeli airstrikes have repeatedly struck the town of Suwaida as the Israeli military escalates its bombardment and ground offensive. On Sunday, mourners gathered outside the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Hospital for the funeral of the 44 people killed throughout the day. With only very little aid being allowed in and delivery impossible in much of the territory, Palestinians are facing a severe shortage of food, water, and other necessities.
We were in our home sleeping. At 4 in the morning, we were surprised by a missile and an abnormal explosion. We came to rescue the people. We found them all in pieces. Here, in the house of the Sukajic family, we found a young man dismembered, body parts, and we found a woman, who is the owner of the house, on top of here in pieces, and a column above filled with blood and body parts. We came here to evacuate displaced people and defenseless people.
The World Food Program, after learning of the U.S. veto of a possible ceasefire, announced that 91% of the people in Gaza suffer from hunger. The agency is unable to effectively distribute aid to the Israeli army siege. Due to the Israeli army siege since the end of the humanitarian pause, the delivery of supplies to many areas of Gaza has slowed and in some cases has not even arrived. Currently, 36% of the households are reported to be suffering from severe hunger, and at least 63% of residents report having gone days without food. The United Nations Agency for Palestine adds that to these warnings and reports that dozens are dying of hunger. Israeli authorities recently revealed the number of casualties during its aggression against Gaza since October 7th. Since the start of the war, 425 Israel Defense Forces soldiers have been killed and another 1,593 wounded. Of the total number of soldiers killed, 97 have been killed since the IDF launched its ground offensive in the Gaza Strip on October 27th. Since that day, 559 Israeli soldiers have been wounded, of which 426 soldiers are currently hospitalized. On Sunday at the Doha Forum, Jordan's Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi said Israel's current incursion in Gaza has stirred an amount of hatred that will haunt the region and define generations to come. He said it was incomprehensible to watch nations around the world allowing Israel to continue with its offensive in Gaza.
We have not seen the world yet come to the place where it should come, which should be an unequivocal demand for ending this war, a war that is within the realm of the legal definition of genocide at this point. That has not happened. We're extremely disappointed that the UN resolution, which was simply calling for a humanitarian pause, that was vetoed. In the United States, we had a very blunt conversation with Secretary Blinken. All of us, the Arab and Muslim delegation, were very clear. Our priorities are set. Stop the aggression, allow sufficient humanitarian supplies into all parts of Gaza, ensure protection of civilians. Israel has created an amount of hatred that will haunt this region, that will define generations for come, and therefore it's hurting its own people as much as it is hurting everybody else in the region. This is a war that cannot be won. Israel has already suffered a strategic defeat, and that is what we need to remember. And I think it is incomprehensible that the world is allowing Israel to continue with the murder and killing of innocent people.
Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammad Shtayyeh stressed that Hamas was an integral part of the Palestinian political mosaic and that Israel's goal of crushing the group's military and governing capabilities would not be achieved and is totally unacceptable, while reiterating that the way Israel and the United States have dealt with the Palestinian issue is a complete failure.
I think it's very important that we should all realize that Hamas is an integral part of the Palestinian political mosaic. And therefore, for Israel to claim that they are going to eliminate Hamas, I think this is something that is totally, first of all, is not going to happen and totally is not acceptable to us. The issue for us is that this occupation that has been there for so long, the total failure is the Israeli-American approach. You cannot handle the question of Palestine from a security perspective. Palestine-Israeli conflict needs a political solution, not an economic solution, not a security solution. Israel all the time wanted to employ only a security solution, and events have proven the Israelis to be failure, and the Americans have been proven to be failures, and all what is needed is a political solution that ends the conflict. Full stop.
In Morocco, citizens took to the streets to show their support for the people of Palestine. The mobilized population marched through the streets of the capital city of Rabat in rejection of the continuous attacks and bombardments perpetrated by the Israeli forces against the Gaza Strip. In this context, the citizens demanded to the Moroccan government the closure of the liaison office with Israel and the rescission of the normalization agreement with Rabat and Tel Aviv, between Rabat and Tel Aviv. The mobilization was attended by Islamic leaders of the Justice and Development Party, the Unification and Reform Movement, and other union activities, sponsored by the National Action Group for Palestine and under the slogan against the Holocaust in Gaza to overthrow the normalization. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with TeleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from South. On Sunday, Cuba presented its organic coffee during the United Nations COP28 climate conference held in the United Arab Emirates. Bio Cuba Café's organic coffee is produced in the eastern mountains of the Caribbean nation with the support of a Lavazza Foundation project. The product is processed by more than 170 coffee growers from 9 municipalities in the eastern region of the country with an innovative concept that seeks to move away from the conventional production of coffee and bets on a clean product that enhances the preservation and social responsibility of the same. At the same time, it will promote good agricultural practices to improve crop yield and quality. This initiative received international organic certification from Control Union Certifications based in Lima, Peru in July 2022.
In fact, for Cuban producers, it's often cheaper, it's simpler, it's easier to access forestry as a natural means of soil and water protection and, of course, of resilience to climate change.
It seems very interesting that the coffee, through the institution that works here, is straining the agroforestry system crops that are eco-friendly. It should be promoted quite a lot, and public policies should really go to strengthening this type of work, not only agroforestry, but also forestry.
Imports of liquefied natural gas in the Netherlands have resumed after a 3-month pause, according to Sputnik's analysis of the country's statistics. Dutch Ministry of Climate and Energy said that the government was working to stop imports of liquefied natural gas from Russia, including stopping the signing of new gas contracts and even seeking the cancellation of existing contracts. Following the announcement, imports plummeted by nearly 30% in May and stopped altogether in June, July, and August. In 1 month, Moscow exported 211.5 million cubic meters of hydrocarbons to Amsterdam for 109 million euros. Also, on a monthly basis, the Dutch imports from Russia as a whole increased by 5.3% to $410.5 million in 1 month. In Egypt, the presidential election campaign is underway, which will be held for a period of 3 consecutive days. Around 9,376 polling stations have been set up for this day, which will be held from Sunday, December 10th to Tuesday, December 12th. During these 3 days, some 67 million Egyptians will have the opportunity to cast their votes to choose between 4 candidates for the next president of the country, among which Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, who is widely favored to retain the office. The process will be supervised by some 15,000 judges and will have the presence of more than 22,600 local and international observers, including 67 diplomats. The National Election Authority is expected to announce the final results on December 18th if there is no need for a second round in January. In Egypt, citizens say they expect the next president to improve their living conditions.
Security and safety are of utmost importance to us. We hope we could bear in mind that prices are somewhat high. It is a result of corruption in the country.
I wish for things to improve, particularly regarding the cost of living, such as the high prices for clothing for children. Many aspects require change. Hopefully, the incoming president will improve our standard of living by increasing incomes and lowering prices, enabling everyone to afford a decent livelihood and allowing us all to have a good life.
On Saturday, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko arrived in Equatorial Guinea as part of an African tour to bolster ties in the continent. Lukashenko and Equatorial Guinea's President Theodore Obiang Mansogo signed several agreements designed to launch the first phase of a regional center to promote Belarusian products in Central and West African markets. Lukashenko said that for months, a joint commission presided by the country's foreign ministers has been studying projects in industry, education, health, and agriculture, which are expected to be completed by 2026. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief, but before saying goodbye, we want to thank our Caribbean audience, especially the audience of Trinidad and Tobago. We are pleased to share our newscasts and contribute to provide an alternative news source of the latest world events. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social medias on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.